Lesson 14 is about fractions and expanding and reducing fractions. Now, fractions are a concept that you are likely familiar with. A fraction is just any number that's written vertically that has a bar between the two numbers. So we could have a number like 3/4. That's a fraction. You might be tempted to think of a fraction as a part of a whole. Don't think of it that way, because we could also think of a fraction as a number like 7/1. That's a whole. That's 7, but it's still written as a fraction. So we can have fractions that are parts of wholes or fractions that are wholes. Okay? Now whenever we have a fraction, we have a numerator and a denominator. And one picture can show us both of these. Let's say we have that number 3/4, like we just saw. We have 3/4, that's 3 out of every 4 things. Our numerator is the number on top, the 3, and our denominator is the number on bottom. So the definition, numerator, the number on top, and this is when we're working with a fraction, and our denominator has to be the number on bottom. We've just used a number symbol there to help us write our notes a little bit faster. Make sure you've got this vocabulary written in your notes so you can refer back to it if you ever have a question about what a numerator or denominator would be. Alright, now looking at a couple different circles, we can see some fractions that could happen in here. We've got two whole parts that make a whole in this one circle. Now if I were to put lines through the top half of this circle, we could say the question, what fraction of the circle has blue lines in it? And we would say 1 out of every 2 parts has blue lines. So 1 out of every 2 parts has blue lines. Now if I put stars in the next circle, and I'm just going to put them in this box, or this piece of this circle, what fraction of the circle would have stars in it? Well, we can see there's 4 pieces, only one has stars, so 1/4 of our box would have stars in it. Okay? And we can write fractions just like that. Alright, let's go ahead and expand the fraction 3/4 so that the denominator is 24. So if we want the denominator to be 24, we're going to start with the problem 3/4. And what we want it to end up is to have a new fraction where the denominator is 24. What we have to figure out is what number do we have to multiply 4 by to get to 24? Or what is 24 divided by 4? Hopefully you said 6. So 4 times 6 is equal to 24. Now in order to expand this fraction so that the denominator is 24, we also need to multiply the numerator by 6. So 3 times 6, that's going to give us 18. So we have an equivalent fraction. 3/4 is the same as 18/24. It's just 6 times bigger. Our denominator is 24, and we're all done because we've rewritten our numerator as well by multiplying it by the same number we multiplied the denominator by. Let's look at another one. Write each number with a denominator of 20. So 5. That's the same thing as 5/1. Remember, a fraction can also be a whole. We want it to have a denominator of 20. So, if we want it to have a new denominator of 20, we have to figure out what number we need to multiply 1 by to get us to 20. That would be 20. 1 times 20 is 20. Now we have to multiply the numerator by 20 as well. 5 times 20, that must be 100. So we get a new answer of 100/20. Let's look at 3/5. 3/5, 3/5. We want the new denominator to be 20. So we need to figure out what number do we multiply by 5 to get to 20? It must be 4. 5 times 4 is 20. So we're going to multiply the numerator by 4 as well. 3 times 4, that's going to give us 12. So we've got our new answer of 12/20. And we're all done with that problem. Let's move on to the next slide. We want to reduce 30/45 to its lowest terms. Now if we want to reduce 30/45 to its lowest terms, what we have to do is find a common factor that we can divide both of these by. Now if you look at the last digit, we can see these are both divisible by 5. So we're going to divide both of them by 5. So 30 divided by 5 is equal to 6, and 45 divided by 5 is equal to 9. So we have an answer of 6/9. But we know that 6 is divisible by 3, and we know that 9 is divisible by 3. If we want to reduce it to its lowest terms, we've got to keep dividing, until we can't divide by the same number anymore. So 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. So we get an answer of 2/3. Now, 2 is even and 3 is odd, so we can't cut either of those, we can't cut both of those in half. So we're done. 30/45 reduced to its lowest terms must be equal to 2/3. Make sure you've got this one copied down in your notes. We've got one more problem to go. Let's reduce 16/32 using the greatest common factor of 16 and 32. Now, the greatest common factor of 16, well, the greatest common factor of 16 and 32, we're looking at those together. Common factors of 16, those would have to be 1 times 16, 2 times 8, and 4 times 4. 32, if we looked at 32, remember we've got to find the common factors of both and then look at which one's the greatest. 1 times 32, we've got 2 times 16, we've got 4 times 8, and we've got all of our factors listed out. Now what's the greatest common factor here between these two numbers? Hopefully you said 16. They both have a 16 in common. So the greatest common factor of 16 and 32 is equal to 16. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this number, 16 over 32, we're going to reduce it by dividing by the greatest common factor. So we're going to divide by 16 on both the numerator and denominator. 16 divided by 16 is 1. 32 divided by 16 is 2. Now, you may have intuitively known that 16/32 is the same as 1/2. But we could also use this method using the greatest common factor. It's really efficient when we have big numbers. Alright, our lesson practice will be on page 53. Make sure you've got your notes completed, and I'll see you in class next time. Have a nice afternoon.